The year I turned 6, my own sister locked me in a pitch-black storage shed. She wore my dress, took my name, and stole the life that should have been mine. While she was being spoiled rotten in her new home, I was at the children's home, unable to defend myself when they called me a liar. While she wore all sorts of custom designer gowns, I spent my childhood in old clothes donated by kind strangers. She learned so many different talents and skills. I had to start working multiple jobs at 15. Washing dishes, ironing clothes in a factory, waiting tables. Until the year I turned 23. She showed up at the little diner where I worked. Her first words were to ask how much money it would take for me to disappear for good. I looked at her eyes, which were identical to mine, and smiled. Ivy, the things you stole back then. Now it's time to give them back to me. I'll never forget that afternoon. Sunlight streamed through the old glass windows of the children's home, casting shifting patches of light on the floor. Ms. Lynn had carefully dressed me and Ivy up. We were wearing the two best dresses the home owned. Mine was pale yellow, and hers was light pink. Ivy, Ava, you have to be on your best behavior in a little bit. Ms. Lynn knelt, adjusting our collars. Mr. and Mrs. Reed are very nice people. They lost their daughter in a car accident and want to adopt a child. I nervously clutched the hem of my dress. Ivy was already on her tiptoes, peering out the window. They're here. A black sedan pulled into the yard. Mr. Reed got out first. He wore a crisp suit and had a serious expression. Mrs. Reed followed, dressed in a lavender dress. She wore a beautiful pearl necklace. When they walked into the reception room, the sunlight landed right on Mrs. Reed's face. She had beautiful eyes, but they held a faint sadness. This is Ivy and Ava. They just turned 6 this year. They're the best behaved set of twins in our home, Ms. Lynn said, introducing us. Ivy immediately broke into a sweet smile. Hello, Mr. Reed. Hello, Mrs. Reed. My name is Ivy. I was a beat behind her, adding quietly, Hello, I'm Ava. Mrs. Reed's gaze drifted between the two of us. What lovely children. Ivy, Ava, pour some tea for our guests, Ms. Lynn prompted. Ivy scrambled to grab the teapot before I could. She poured the tea into the cups with an exaggerated motion. Please have some tea, Mrs. Reed. Be careful, it's hot. A few drops of scalding tea splashed out, landing on Mrs. Reed's dress. Ivy immediately pretended to panic and threw herself into her arms. I'm so sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. Mrs. Reed was a little taken aback, but gently patted her on the back. It's all right, child. Mr. Reed frowned slightly but didn't say anything. I hear the children can sing? Ms. Lynn smiled and nodded. Ava has a lovely singing voice. Ivy can sing too. My sister immediately lifted her head from Mrs. Reed's embrace. I sing better than my sister. Mrs. Reed looked at us gently. Well, would you two be willing to sing a song for us? Of course I would. Ivy immediately stood in the center of the room. I can sing Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star. She started singing, her voice loud but a little off-key. Before she was even finished, she looked at me proudly, as if she'd already won. Mrs. Reed smiled, then turned her gaze to me. Ava, would you like to try? I nodded and walked over to the window. The afternoon sun cast a golden glow on the side of my face. I took a deep breath and softly began to sing a sad old song. Outside the long pavilion, along the ancient road, fragrant grass stretches to the sky. I sang with intense focus. My voice, clear and pure, echoed in the quiet reception room. When I reached the lines, the evening wind blows the willow, the flute's song fades, the sun sets beyond the mountains. Mrs. Reed gently covered her mouth, her eyes turning red. Mr. Reed was also watching me intently, his expression softening. To the ends of the earth, to the corners of the sea, half of my dear friends are scattered. The song ended, its melody lingering in the air. Mrs. Reed's tears finally fell. She whispered to her husband, "This child's voice, it's so much like our daughter's." Ivy sensed the change in atmosphere and immediately ran to her side. She tugged on her arm, whining, "Ivy can dance too. Ivy is much more talented than her sister." But Mrs. Reed's attention was entirely on me. She walked over, knelt down, and gently took my hand. "Ava, would you like to come home with us?" I froze. I would. I said softly, my face instantly flushing. Mrs. Reed pulled me into an embrace. Her arms were so warm. She stroked my hair, repeating over and over, "Good, good." She felt so soft and smelled so nice. Is this what a mother's embrace feels like? Mr. Reed came over too and placed a hand on my shoulder. Can you take my sister with you too? I asked cautiously, mustering all my courage. But their eyes darted away. The atmosphere tensed for a moment. It was Mr. Reed who spoke first. "I'm sorry, Eva. You're just more like our daughter. Besides, we only ever planned on having one child." Ivy stood behind Mrs. Reed. Her expression shifted from anticipation to shock, finally settling into an icy coldness I had never seen before. "This is our special connection. Ivy is a wonderful little girl too. Some other nice auntie and uncle will take you home." As she left, Mrs. Reed told Ms. Lynn, "We'll come to pick Ava up next Saturday." They left a lot of gifts for Ivy when they went. There were all sorts of pretty little dresses and shoes. But Ivy wouldn't stop screaming. Tears and snot streamed down her face as she sobbed. "It's all your fault. It's all your fault. Why didn't they pick me?" Ivy stared at me with hatred, as if I were some kind of monster. "I'm sorry, Ivy. I'll find a way to come back for you. I promise." "Liar. You're a big liar." She ran off crying. I stayed in the reception room by myself for a long, long time that day. Saturday came quickly. Ms. Lynn stroked my hair, her eyes filled with relief and happiness for me. "You have to be a good girl at your new home and study hard." Ivy stood in the corner, watching me. Those eyes, identical to mine, were bottomless pits. "Sister," she suddenly grabbed my hand, pulling me aside. "Ivy, you're finally talking to me." Her eyes were anxious. "I think there's a little cat in the storage shed. It's dying. Let's go help it, okay?" Without a second thought, I ran with her toward the abandoned shed behind the yard. "It's in here. The poor little thing. Quick, look for it." I bent down and started searching carefully for the kitten. "Here, kitty, kitty." Then I heard a heavy click behind me. The shed door had been locked. I pounded on the wooden door in a panic. "Ivy, Ivy, open the door." From outside, I heard my sister's calm voice. "I'm sorry, sister. I want a family too. I want to be loved. From now on, I'll be Ava Reed for you." Through a crack in the door, I watched my sister run away without a backward glance. Only then did I realize she was wearing my pale yellow dress. And her hair was in 2 pigtail braids just like mine. "Ava, are you ready?" Mrs. Reed gently took my sister's hand. "I'm ready, Mom." My sister glanced back toward the shed. Clutching her new parents' warm hands, her heart pounded. She didn't dare look back. Her face wore a brilliant smile I had never seen before. My fingernails scratched bloody marks into the wooden door. And I screamed until my throat was raw, but no one heard me. The bright future that should have been mine was locked in the darkness behind me, right along with me. From that day on, there were 2 Ava Reeds in the world. I was locked in the shed. They didn't realize someone was missing until the nightly head count at bedtime. By the time they rescued me, I had a high fever. I kept mumbling deliriously, "I'm the real Ava." Left behind at the children's home, I was still using the name, Ava Reed. At first, I tried to explain to Ms. Lynn that I was the one locked in the shed, that my sister was the one who had been taken. But no one believed me. The twins looked too much alike, even Ms. Lynn couldn't tell us apart. "Ivy, we know you're sad that your sister is gone," Ms. Lynn said, patting my head pitifully. "But you can't lie about it." That was it. Ivy was always the one who loved to lie. So of course, no one would believe a word she said. Besides, my official papers had been taken by her. From then on, I could only use Ivy's name for school. Slowly, I stopped trying to explain. And I no longer wanted to speak much at all. I had no choice and no way out. Later, all I could do was study like a maniac. The lights at the home went out at 9 p.m., so I would hide in the hallway outside the bathroom. I'd memorize my books by the light that was always on over the bathroom door. The hallway was freezing in the winter. I'd wrap myself in a thin old cotton jacket, my feet so cold they felt like blocks of ice. 6 years of elementary school, 3 years of middle school. I was always first in my grade. The principal personally awarded me a scholarship, so I didn't have to worry about tuition. At 15, I found my first job at a restaurant near the school. The greasy back kitchen, the mountains of dishes. My hands, soaked in dish soap, quickly became red, swollen, and cracked. They were covered in painful chilblains. But I was happy. That night, clutching my first ever paycheck, $28, I cried on the way back to the home. For 3 years of high school, I worked 3 jobs at once. I'd deliver newspapers at dawn before going to school, help out in the school cafeteria at lunch, and go to a clothing factory to iron clothes at night. The iron was heavy, the workshop was stuffy, and I was often so tired I'd fall asleep on the bus. I never took another cent from the children's home. Finally, when the college entrance exam scores were released, I was the city's valedictorian for liberal arts. Suddenly, the home was flooded with reporters. They came to interview me, asking what my dream was. My dream? I want to be an architect, I said, smiling for the camera. I want to design places like this home to be full of sunlight and love, to be houses that feel like a real home. Behind the camera, the reporter's eyes welled up. For 4 years of college, I survived on a full scholarship and my part-time job earnings. I ate 2 meals a day and wore the same cotton jacket for all 4 winters. Sometimes I would think of my sister. Through bits and pieces of information online, I knew she was living well with the Reeds. They had moved abroad a long time ago. She attended expensive private schools, wore designer clothes, and went to all sorts of charity galas. She was living the life I was supposed to have. But I could also build the life I wanted for myself. In my senior year, I finally received an acceptance letter for a master's program at a top university in Paris. My advisor really liked me and fought hard to get me a half scholarship. But I was still short $50,000. That was a sum I could never save up, no matter how many jobs I worked. I started working like a fiend. I interned at a firm during the day, taught at a tutoring center at night, and took on freelance projects on the weekends. But with only 6 months until my program started in France, I was still short $40,000. With no other options, I applied for a server position at a high-end club called the Platinum Lounge. It was my 4th part-time job. The pay was high, and I heard that if you were lucky, one night's tips could equal half a month's income from my other jobs. I told myself it was just serving drinks. I just had to get through it. On my first night, I was assigned to serve the guests in a VIP room. The moment I pushed the door open, I regretted it. The room was thick with smoke. I immediately recognized the man sitting in the main seat, Sean. He was a business partner of the Reeds and also my sister's fiancé. I had seen their picture together in a magazine. I lowered my head, trying to slip out unnoticed. But the manager pushed me into the room. Take good care of Mr. Collins and his guests. I tried to make myself as small as possible, quietly refilling drinks and replacing fruit platters. Just as I was about to leave with an empty tray, my wrist was suddenly grabbed. The strong smell of alcohol hit me. Ava. Sean looked at me with hazy, drunken eyes. What are you doing here? I panicked and pulled my hand away. It had been years since anyone had called me by my real name. You have the wrong person. I fled the room. But he actually chased after me. I froze at the door, and before I could react, he pulled me into his arms. His hot lips pressed against mine, stinging with the taste of alcohol. Slap. The crisp sound of a slap echoed down the hallway. I was trembling, and tears streamed down my face against my will. You bastard. The man's head snapped to the side from the force. The slap seemed to sober him up. He clutched his face, looking up in shock at the face before him, which was nearly identical to his girlfriend's. His brow furrowed. You're not Ava Reed? That question was like a bucket of ice water poured over my head. I looked at his handsome but unfamiliar face and thought of the sister who had stolen my life. A bitter, cold smile formed on my lips. The fake Ava Reed had all the best things in the world, while the real Ava Reed gave her all, trying her hardest, only to live like a clown. I didn't care about anything anymore. I turned and ran. I didn't even stay to collect my wages for the night. I ran far away from the Platinum Lounge before I finally collapsed at a street corner, hugging my knees and sobbing. I didn't want to reopen that wound. It had been 17 years. I had long since accepted my fate. I just wanted to save up enough for tuition, go far away, and start a new life. I often couldn't help but ask myself, do you hate her? But what good would hating her do? I could never forget that scene in the reception room 17 years ago. Ivy, hiding behind Mrs. Reed, biting her lower lip so hard, trembling, trying her best not to cry. She looked as if the whole world had abandoned her. So even after everything she did to me, I never truly hated her. I just wanted to hide, to never again cross paths with anyone or anything related to her. We were both just poor kids who wanted a home. Let's just live our own lives in our parallel worlds. I will work hard and live a good life. You can do it. The real Ava. I wiped away my tears and pulled my jacket tighter. At the bus stop late at night, my shadow stretched long, so very long. I never expected her to show up on her own. A few days later, at the little diner where I worked. It was 4 in the afternoon, and the diner was empty. I had just cleared a messy table and was bent over, wiping down the next one. Sweat soaked my back, and my hair was stuck to my forehead in messy strands. The bell on the door chimed as a customer entered. Without looking up, I said, "Welcome, how many?" There was no reply. I looked up, confused, and then I saw Ivy. She was wearing a designer cocktail dress and teetering on stiletto heels. Her makeup was so perfect she looked like she had just stepped off a magazine cover. She was completely out of place in this greasy, noisy diner filled with the smell of stir-fry smoke. We stared at each other across a gap of more than a decade. She looked me up and down, her expression complicated. There was guilt, unease, but mostly a condescending scrutiny. I was wearing a faded t-shirt, my apron stained with large grease spots. The moment our eyes met, the air seemed to freeze. Finally, she walked toward me. She took a check from her expensive crocodile leather handbag. She placed it gently on the table I had just wiped clean. "Name your price. What do you want? How much will it take for you to disappear for good?" I slowly straightened up, putting down the blackened rag in my hand. "What do I want?" I took a step forward, looking directly into those eyes that were identical to mine. I clearly spoke the name that should have been hers. "Ivy." Her face instantly turned deathly pale. "When you locked me in that dark room, took my name, and stole my life." I paused, letting every word sink into her heart. "Did you ask me what I wanted?" Under the diner's dim, yellow light we stood, twin sisters. One was as bright and glamorous as the moon, the other, as plain and worn as dust. Separated by the dozen years she had stolen. We finally stood face to face, on opposite ends of the scale of fate. "Ivy, it's time to give my name back to me. I have my own life. I don't want to work hard my entire life, only to live it under your name." A cold sneer suddenly appeared on her lips. "Work hard? Is your idea of working hard washing dishes in a filthy place like this? Do you really think it makes a difference what name you use, with your kind of status?" She covered her nose with a look of disgust. Her eyes held undisguised contempt. "Ivy, how did you become like this? Do you really think I'm still the same easy target I was back then?" I picked up the check from the table and tore it to shreds right in front of her. "I only came here to compensate you out of sisterly affection. Do you think you can threaten me? Do you think anyone will believe you?" I tossed the shredded pieces into the trash can. "Then we'll just have to wait and see." "Ivy, you." Less than 2 days later, Sean showed up, just as I'd expected. He wore a perfectly tailored dark gray suit that was completely out of place in the cheap coffee shop near my school. "Miss Reed, about the other night, I'm sorry. I mistook you for my fiancé." Remembering Ivy's vicious expression, a bold and crazy plan instantly formed in my mind. I lifted my head, deliberately letting tears well up in my eyes. I showed just the right amount of surprise and vulnerability. You're my sister's fiancé? I've been looking for her for so many years." My voice trembled slightly, like a child who had endured countless hardships searching for her family, only to be wronged again. "You two really do look so much alike. I can take you to her." "So you're a Reed too?" "Yes," I said with a bitter smile as a tear slid down my cheek at the perfect moment. "I got lost when I was little and was abducted by bad people." His brow furrowed, a hint of sympathy on his face. "My memories from that time are very blurry." I wove a story, half truth and half lie, my voice choked with emotion. I skillfully grafted the suffering of the past 17 years onto the story of a kidnapped child. I was displaced, passed between several families, and finally ended up at the children's home. I studied desperately, worked desperately. I just kept thinking that maybe one day, I could find my family. I looked up at him with teary eyes. I let all my yearning for a family show, holding nothing back. They've been living abroad all this time. They only came back recently for our wedding. No wonder you couldn't find them. You've suffered, Ivy. He believed my story, seeing me as the long-lost Reed daughter. Have you and my sister known each other for many years? Not really. We've known each other for less than 2 years. It seemed he didn't know about the Reeds adopting a child. I had looked them up. Their relationship seemed more like a business alliance. And Sean's family business was several times larger than the Reeds. Perhaps this was a calculated move by the Reeds for their daughter to marry up. Will you take me home? I whispered, my voice filled with a desperate plea. Take me to the Reeds. I just want to see with my own eyes if that's my home. Outside the Reed villa's imposing ornate iron gate, Sean stood by my side. His presence was my ticket in and my shield. Ivy, relax. You're about to see your family. When I walked into the dining room with Sean, the expressions on everyone's faces froze. The silver fork in Ivy's hand clattered onto her plate, her face ashen. The atmosphere of the family dinner suddenly became suffocatingly strange. Mr. and Mrs. Reed, Sean began excitedly. I think I've brought you someone you've been looking for. He recounted the story of the kidnapped heiress that I had so carefully woven for him. The guests looked from my face to my sister's identical one, completely convinced by the story. I looked at the couple before me, who had aged somewhat. They were supposed to have been the mom and dad, by my side all these years. I couldn't stop my eyes from turning red. Mr. Reed was truly a seasoned businessman. The shock on his face lasted less than 3 seconds before it was replaced by a look of heartfelt pain. He strode over and hugged me tightly. His voice was thick with exaggerated emotion. My child. My child. You've suffered so much. Dad has been looking for you for so long. Mrs. Reed immediately caught on, elegantly dabbing at non-existent tears at the corners of her eyes. She came forward to embrace me. It's good you're back, my darling. I was enveloped in this phony warmth, and my stomach suddenly churned. Ivy sat across from me, her eyes like poisoned daggers, fixed on me. This drama of a touching father-daughter reunion continued until the dinner ended. The moment the guests left, the loving expression on Mr. Reed's face vanished, replaced by cold seriousness. He glanced at me and gave Mrs. Reed a look. Ivy, come take a walk with us in the garden. Mrs. Reed took my arm, her grip firm and unyielding. In the summer night's garden, the flowers were fragrant, but there was an inexplicable chill in the air. Mr. Reed stopped, turned around, his gaze as sharp as a hawk's. There are no outsiders here. Speak. Who are you really? What do you want? I looked at them, a wave of grievance flooding my heart. Meeting their gaze, I tried to speak calmly. I am the real Ava Reed. I'm the girl you chose at the children's home all those years ago. It was Ivy who locked me in the shed on the day you came. She took my name and stole my life. I expected to see shock on their faces, disbelief, guilt. But there was nothing. Mr. and Mrs. Reed exchanged a look. Their expressions were ones of, as we expected, understanding. Mrs. Reed even let out a small laugh. In the quiet garden, that laugh was especially grating. We've known for a long time. My whole body went stiff, my blood seeming to freeze in my veins. We figured it out the day after we brought her home. After all, the two of you have very different personalities, Mr. Reed added, his tone as flat as if he were discussing a minor business deal. I stared at them in disbelief, my voice trembling. You knew? Then why? Why didn't we expose her? Mrs. Reed elegantly smoothed a wrinkle in her skirt. Because we discovered that your sister's ambition was a better fit for the Reed family. They looked at me, their eyes devoid of any warmth. Don't you get it yet? It's not about who we brought home back then. It's about the 15 years of effort and resources we've poured into the identity of Ava Reed. She is now the Ava Reed, who can bring honor to our family on all occasions. The Ava Reed, who is about to marry into the Collins family. And you? She looked me up and down. Her gaze swept over my faded jeans and slightly rough skin. Her voice was filled with undisguised indifference. That was just a choice made many years ago. It's not important anymore. After all, we have no real blood ties, do we? Boom. I felt as if something inside me had completely collapsed. So the warm home I had longed for was nothing but a carefully calculated field of interests. The truth, in the face of their so-called sunk costs and family interests, was worthless. All these years, I was the only one foolishly treasuring the memory of the mother who had hugged me while crying. A chill shot up from the soles of my feet and through my entire body. I felt as if I had been plunged into an icy river, my fingertips turning cold. Speak, Mr. Reed said, losing his patience. What was your purpose in making up that story in front of everyone? Do you want money? I trembled, my mouth open but unable to speak. He looked at me with contempt, as if giving alms. We can give you a sum of money, on the condition that you keep your mouth shut from now on. You will properly play the role of the long-lost second daughter, who has just been found. You will let your sister marry Sean without any trouble. Since you started this play, you have to see it through with us. I stood there, moonlight washing over me, but I felt no warmth. I looked at this sophisticated, cold couple and the magnificent but cold prison behind them. After a long moment, I slowly raised my head. A smile that looked more painful than crying spread across my face. Fine. I'll play. I stood in the guest room the Reeds had prepared for me. The room was luxurious, with velvet bedsheets and a crystal chandelier. Every detail exuded a cold sophistication. There was no trace of life, let alone the warmth of a home. So this was the home I had dreamed of for 17 years. Knock knock. A sharp rap on the door. I composed myself and opened it. An aggressive-looking Ivy stood outside. What the hell do you want? I'm warning you, stay away from my family and my fiancé. Her eyes looked like they were about to shoot fire. Or what? I was suddenly intrigued. She bit her lip hard, as if racking her brain for a way to threaten me. But Ivy, I was already a person with nothing to lose. What could I possibly be afraid of losing? I won't bother you and Sean. I'll get my money and go abroad to study soon. At the mention of Sean, her eyes instantly sharpened, like a cat protecting its food. You don't get to call him Sean. Remember your place. She took a step forward, trembling with anger. You want more than just money, don't you? If you only wanted money, you wouldn't have torn up my check. I burst out laughing. Sister, have you forgotten what I said? Give me back the life you stole. Her pupils dilated, and her face went white. She looked at me as if she had seen a ghost. I didn't want to argue with her anymore, and turned to close the door. But she stuck her arm out to block it. She spat out hatefully. Don't think you can steal anything just because you look like me. Look at your pathetic status. To my parents, you're just a liar. To Sean, you're nothing. Looking at the face before me, so similar to my own but twisted with hatred and threats, the last remnants of my ridiculous fantasies about family completely vanished. Ivy, this time, I won't go easy on you. The moment the door closed, my temples throbbed. Just then, my phone screen lit up. It was a text from Sean. Ivy, how does it feel to be home? I looked at the text, my fingertip gently stroking the cold screen. The fish was on the hook. No man can resist the feeling of being a savior. Sean, maybe I've been away from home for too long. They don't seem to like me. How could that be? Don't overthink it. I'll take you out tomorrow to clear your head. The Reeds wanted me to be a quiet pawn. My sister wanted to crush me under her heel. But they had no idea. The real Ava was no longer someone they could control. I picked up my phone, my fingers tapping lightly, and replied with one word. Okay. The night outside was dark. I hid myself in the shadows and didn't sleep a wink. The next day, I went to the restaurant where I was meeting Sean with a bare face, wearing a simple white t-shirt and jeans. Sean, I said softly. I placed a faded old backpack on the table. I unzipped it and carefully took out a thick stack of certificates and awards. I spread them all over the table. Honor roll certificates, first place competition prizes, full scholarship letters, outstanding graduate awards. Some of the papers were yellowed and frayed at the edges, but each one was smoothed out perfectly. From elementary school to college, every time I got one of these, I would think. I looked up, forcing my eyes to redden, my voice tinged with a sob. When I find my mom and dad, I can show them all of this. I want to tell them that I've always worked so hard. I thought that if I was hardworking enough, outstanding enough, they would be proud of me. They would feel sorry for the hardships I endured while I was lost. My voice grew quieter, thick with emotion. Under the table, I dug my nails hard into my thigh. The sharp pain instantly brought large tears rolling down my cheeks. They splashed onto the old awards, creating small, blurry spots. I looked up at him helpless. But they don't seem to welcome me. And my sister Ava, she really dislikes me too. Sean looked at the table full of awards, then at my tear-streaked face. His deep eyes filled with emotion and pity. He handed me a handkerchief. "Don't cry, Ivy," he sighed. "Ava's personality can be a bit willful. But your sister's connected by blood. Give her some time. You'll get along eventually." I took the handkerchief, my fingers trembling slightly, ready to continue my performance. "Ava Reed." A sharp female voice suddenly shattered the restaurant's quiet atmosphere. A young woman with a face full of rage stormed up to our table. Her eyes were spitting fire at me, as if she wanted to eat me alive. The next second, she violently grabbed the bottle of red wine from our table and poured it over my head. Splash! The cold liquid instantly drenched me. My hair stuck clammily to my face and neck, and my eyes stung. My white t-shirt was stained a glaring deep red, and I was a complete mess. I froze, as if stunned by the sudden attack. "Ava Reed, you're finally back in the country." The woman pointed her finger at my nose, her voice trembling with emotion. "All those terrible things you did in England." Cornering my sister in the bathroom and slapping her, forcing her to kneel, burning her arm with a cigarette, again and again. You gave her severe depression, and she had to drop out of school and come home for treatment. And you're here playing the victim, preparing for your glamorous wedding? Today, I'm going to let your fiancé see what a vicious heart is hidden beneath that pretty face. As she spoke, she quickly pulled out her phone and shoved the screen right in front of Sean. Sean's brow furrowed tightly, his gaze fixed on the phone screen. On it were one shocking photo after another. A thin girl, one side of her face swollen, her lip bloody, her eyes terrified. Another photo showed the girl's arm with clear, circular burn marks. And another showed the girl huddled in a corner, her hair disheveled, her face covered in tears and humiliation. The background of the photos was recognizably a school bathroom abroad. The gentle expression on Sean's face vanished without a trace. In its place was pure shock. His lips were pressed into a cold, thin line. His eyes were clouded over with a deep, bottomless darkness. The entire restaurant was staring at our table. I stood there, covered in red wine stains, looking utterly wretched. I said nothing, just lowered my head. My shoulders trembled slightly, letting the wine and a few remaining tears mix together. "I'm sorry, you have the wrong person. This is Ava Reed's twin sister." Sean stood up and gently wiped the wine from my face with his handkerchief. "Ivy, I'll have someone take you home to change. I'm Ava Reed's fiancé. Take me to see your sister." Watching Sean and the woman walk away, I couldn't help but let a small smile form on my lips. "Sister, I hope you enjoy this little gift." I was taken to Sean's house. His secretary thoughtfully prepared a change of clothes for me. Soaking in his enormous bathtub, I finally began to relax. I had gone to great lengths to find the girl Ivy had bullied. She was always like that when we were kids at the home. Always arrogant and domineering. Always bullying the other children. Some things about a person's nature are truly hard to change. The girl she bullied would tremble just at the mention of her name. Even though her life had been ruined, she was too scared to agree to testify. It was only after I tracked down her family and tore open the bloody truth she had suppressed for so long that the love and support of her family gave her the courage to seek justice. I had arranged to meet the girl's sister at the restaurant in advance. Every scene of this play was perfectly executed by us. And what came next was the best part. That evening, my phone started blowing up. "Hey Ava, Did you do this? Sean said he wants to break off our engagement. What the hell did you do? Listening to her nearly hysterical voice, a smile crept into my eyes. So you're willing to admit I'm the real Ava now? Was I the one who did all that ugly bullying in England? Ivy, did you really think you could do all those terrible things without paying a price? Ignoring her frantic screams, I turned my phone off. The world was suddenly quiet. For Sean, learning that his fiancée's carefully crafted image concealed such a vicious heart was a shock. And for the Collins family, they could never accept a future daughter-in-law with such a major stain on her character. Sean didn't come back until late that night. He was dead drunk, his eyes red. But he still remembered to apologize to me. I'm sorry, Ivy. I forgot to arrange for someone to take you home. You can sleep in the guest room tonight. I'll take you back first thing in the morning. That's okay, Sean. Ava called me. She thinks I'm the reason your relationship is ruined. But I didn't even do anything. That family, that sister, they're so different from what I imagined for all these years. I think I'll just go back to the children's home tomorrow. He suddenly looked up at me. His eyes were full of pity. She brought this on herself. It has nothing to do with you. Don't take it to heart. Yeah. Without the Reeds, I can still build a good life for myself. I've made it this far on my own, haven't I? He nodded at me and suddenly broke into an encouraging smile. Ivy, you're so hardworking. You'll succeed at whatever you do. The next day, a job offer appeared in my email. The sender was Aura Architects, a top-tier firm in the industry, and its parent company was the Collins Corporation. It must have been Sean, who had seen my architectural design awards. I cherished this opportunity. Without a moment's hesitation, I quickly replied to accept. And I did something incredibly satisfying. I blocked the contact information of every single member of the Reed family. Those calculating parents. The sister who stole my life. I left them all decisively behind me. I threw myself into the project, cherishing this chance more than anyone. This wasn't a handout, it was my battlefield. It was where I could carve out a place for myself with my own legitimate skills. The construction site in July was under a sun so fierce it could bake you alive. I wore a hard hat and rough work clothes, following the project manager around the site again and again. My skin darkened at a visible rate and even started to peel. But I didn't care at all. When it was time to eat, I was just like the workers. I'd get a lunchbox and find a shady spot, or just squat on a pile of building materials. I'd eat and chat with them, listening to them talk about the practical difficulties they encountered during construction. This frontline experience was a treasure that no textbook could ever provide. My notebook was densely filled with data, problems, and design ideas. At night, the lights in the firm's office often stayed on just for me. I stared at the computer screen, repeatedly revising design plans and optimizing structures. I agonized over every detail. When I got tired, I'd splash my face with cold water and drink coffee cup after cup. The high-intensity pace made me lose over 20 pounds in less than a month. My work clothes, which used to fit, now hung loosely on me. My colleagues secretly called me the workaholic. But it was all worth it the moment our project won the bid. Our team had secured the 8-figure contract for a major cultural center, and the core area design I was responsible for was singled out for praise by the client. It had been a key factor in winning the bid. To ensure my design vision was perfectly realized during construction, I moved directly onto the site, rooming with the auntie who cooked for everyone. I could solve any technical problems that arose during construction on the spot. I could see firsthand the miracle of my drawings transforming from 2D plans into a 3D reality. One afternoon, Sean suddenly came to inspect the site. Surrounded by a group of executives, he wore an expensive, well-pressed suit and gleaming leather shoes. He was completely out of place in the dusty environment. Then, his gaze traveled across the crowd and landed on me. I was squatting on the ground, studying the foundation plans with the construction foreman. Under my hard hat, my face was tanned and even a little rough. My hair was damp with sweat, plastered messily to my forehead. My work clothes were stained with grayish-white dust, and the cuffs were frayed. I looked up and met his shocked gaze. The emotions in his eyes churned with complexity. I wiped the sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand and gave him a perfectly ordinary smile. In that moment, what Sean saw was no longer a weak person in need of pity. After that day, he started showing up at the site more often, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. He no longer arrived with a large entourage. Sometimes he just brought 1 or 2 assistants, or came alone. He even lowered himself to sit with me on the dusty steps and eat a lunchbox. I never expected you to work this hard. His gaze fell on my peeling, sunburnt arms. I shoveled a mouthful of rice. It's nothing, I mumbled. Just trying to earn my salary. And to be worthy of the chance you gave me. I was only halfway through my lunch when a sharp voice suddenly rang out. San. Ivy had appeared at the entrance to the workshed. She wore an exquisite dress that was completely at odds with the construction site, her face a mask of grievance and anger. She strode over and, without a word, knocked the lunchbox out of my hands. Greasy food and rice splattered all over me, soiling her high heels as well. Sean, don't let her fool you. She pointed a finger at my nose, her voice breaking into a sob. She's a calculating liar. She only showed up to steal you away from me. She never once treated me like her real sister. That's enough, Ava. Stop making a scene. Sean had lost his temper too. I looked at the food scattered on the ground. I brushed the rice and vegetable scraps off my clothes. A spoiled princess really has no idea about the real world, does she? Such perfectly good food, and you just knock it over. I looked up, meeting her eyes, and spoke, word by word. Ivy, I want you to ask yourself, from the moment you locked me in that shed when we were 6, have you ever, for even one day, for even 1 minute, treated me like your real sister? When Sean heard me call her Ivy, he shot to his feet. He stared at us in surprise. What's going on? What did you call her? Who is Ivy? My sister panicked, her face turning white as a sheet. No. Sean, don't listen to her lies. She screamed and tried to lunge forward to cover my mouth. In her haste, her ridiculously high heels twisted beneath her. With a cry of ouch, she fell clumsily to the ground. She clutched her ankle and began to sob pathetically, trying to use tears to regain control of the situation. However, Sean and I just stood there, watching her performance coldly. Neither of us made a move to help her up. I turned to Sean, my face showing a hint of apology, but mostly a sense of relieved calm. I'm sorry, Sean. I did lie to you. Neither of us is a real Reed heiress. I calmly recounted the whole story, from our time at the children's home to the present. When I finished, a huge weight that had been pressing on my heart for so long finally lifted. I'm truly grateful to you, I said, looking him straight in the eye with sincerity. Thank you for giving me this job, for letting me prove myself with my own abilities. As of today, the architectural design portion of this project that I was responsible for has been fully implemented in the construction phase. I think it's time to say goodbye to this project, and to you all. I turned my gaze to my sister, who was sitting on the ground, her face ashen. My tone was decisive, leaving no room for argument. Ivy, I need you to give me back my official papers and my ID. I paused, my gaze as sharp as a knife. Otherwise, you'll lose more than just Sean. I will make sure the whole world sees your ugly, bullying face. From the very beginning, all I ever wanted was to get my own name and identity back. I received the salary and project bonus I had earned. The money was enough for me to study in France. Before I left, I went back to the children's home. I placed Ava Reed's ID on the director's desk. I told you, I am the real Ava. I remember the countless nights as a child when I would cry myself to sleep under the covers, trying to defend my own identity. After being labeled a liar, I became more and more withdrawn. All my grievances and frustrations had to be hidden deep inside. Ava, I'm so sorry. I looked at the director's graying hair and wrinkled face. That apology, 17 years too late, suddenly brought a sense of release to my heart. I took my ID card and pulled a bank card from my pocket, placing it on the table. Director, this is a small contribution for the children. From now on, I will deposit money into this card every month. Please use it to get the children thicker blankets and some new clothes. I went to the dorms, the cafeteria, the library. I quietly walked through the environment where I had grown up. It was old now. The wooden doors creaked, and the tables and chairs were wobbly and peeling. I went out to the yard and watched the children playing happily in the sun. There were also a few sensitive, shy children hiding under a tree, afraid to join the crowd. I made a silent vow to myself that I would complete my studies. As soon as I graduated, I would come back and rebuild the home. I would turn it into a truly warm and sunny big family. On the day I left for France, Sean rushed to the airport. He held a bouquet of flowers, his eyes filled with affection. Ava. It doesn't matter what your identity is. I've never met a girl like you, so real, so brave. Even with nothing, you refused to rely on others and instead carved out a place for yourself. I really admire you. I even love you. I hope you can give me a chance. Let me wait for you to come back, okay? I looked at the man before me, sincere, handsome. From head to toe, he exuded a refined elegance. But there was nothing in him, no unique soul, that could move me. I smiled and shook my head, pushing the flowers back into his arms. I turned and walked away without looking back. Toward my new world. The real Ava. She deserved all the best things in this world. I heard that Ivy was sued by her victim for the bullying. A prison sentence awaited her. Because of the scandal, the Reeds ruthlessly cut all ties with her. As the plane took off, there was a buzzing in my ears. This was my first time on a plane. I looked out the window at the vast sea and sky, and I suddenly realized my life had never really been stolen. As long as I worked hard enough, as long as I was dedicated enough, the best life would always be held firmly in my own hands. The end.